Hi, I'm Brian Cannone. Thank you again for visiting fitnessatlantic.com. And we're talking about some things, well, what I'm talking to you about is getting into your first show, getting past the challenges of the nervousness, of feeling confident to go into your show, which is something that most people never get over. There's always a nervousness about doing that next show that you're going to go into. Finding someone to coach you along and give you that advice. You definitely want to find some people that have done shows before. And when you're looking for somebody to help you do a show, you're going to be deciding on different things that you may not have thought about in the first place. And to me, they're not always the most important, but they end up turning into that. You're going to find that there's a lot of different federations. There's a lot of different people that promote shows, and they're at different levels of events. They offer different things. When I first decided to do a show, I had been to a few. So in the state of Connecticut, there were a few different things going on. We had the Milford County Show, which was an AAU show, and that was run in March, and it was always in Milford, the town of Milford. It's actually not a county, just called it that. But it was the Milford County was run by a guy named Fred Yale, and he also ran the AAU Mr. Miss Connecticut in the month of June. And then there was another guy, CJ Bouchard, was running shows with the AMBC. Those were Lifetime Natural Shows, is what they were called. They had a polygraph test before them. And then there were the MPC shows, and you had a few guys running those. You had Carlo Bersi ran the East Coast Iron Classic. You had the Northeastern, they called it, the Northeastern, and then you had the Connecticut State. And those were run by Mike Katz, Jerry Mastrangelo. So you had, those are pretty much the main shows. Every once in a while, a couple more would pop up, but those were the ones that you knew you could check your calendar. They were going on every single year. So for me, back in like 1993, to take a look at which show, of course, everybody who was a novice going in usually did the Milford County as their first show. So that was the one that I would choose. You know, I did go as a spectator to all these shows, and I saw what they were like. The most competitive at that time was definitely the MPC show. That was the one that had the most guys, the biggest guys were in that show. The guys that were in the state that were known, people talked about as bodybuilders, those were the ones that they were in that show, and that was the one that they ended up going to each year. That was like kind of like the one that had the biggest crowd too, I would say, the Gold's Classic, the one by the Montaneries that was at the Schubert Theater back then. It was a big show, not competitor-wise. There were more like 50 guys in the show, but they'd always bring in a huge guest poser who was the main person at the time. So I remember going and seeing Flex Wheeler and seeing all these different names of the industry that were the featured guest poser. Pretty much the place held about 1,200 people. It was always sold out. There were like 3 tiers of mezzanines in the place, and it was pretty much a black curtain. Most of the shows had a black curtain. They really didn't dress up their stages too much. Once in a while when you went to, I remember Mike Katz had the it wasn't Mr. Connecticut, they called it that, but it was the Connecticut State MPC, and it was at the Hartford Civic Center one time. And it was down as an expo, and they had about 30 booths, and they had Lee Haney, who was Mr. Olympia at the time, was the guest poser, and that was a good turnout. There were a lot of people at that show. But basically, you want to see what the shows are like. What I mean by explaining all this to you is that I went to all the shows, I knew what they were like, I knew the type of people that were in them, and I knew where I felt comfortable. You would still get guys, though, that would go into a novice show like the Milford County that were definitely above that level. They should be in one of the bigger shows. But for the most part, it wasn't. It was more of a beginner show. Novice guys were there. About 50 competitors in that show, but there would be 500 people in the audience. And that's basically because everybody was there as their first time, And first-time competitors bring a lot of people with them. You know, it's definitely people want to come out, they want to see you, they want to know what's going on. So you have the first-time shows like that, and then you definitely have the shows like the MPC, Connecticut State at the time. They don't even have that show anymore here. But it had a big crowd because the guys were pretty known as those were the freaks. Those are people you want to come out and see. And then you had the in-between shows. You know, you had like CJ always did well at the AMBC show because he would get like 60 guys in it. It would be a good turnout, and everybody was trying to qualify for the USA. So you had a lot of people coming out trying to qualify to make it to their national show. So you want to investigate and see what's going on in your area. You want to take a look at that. My buddy has a website called naturalbodybuildingevents.com, and he puts a calendar up of everybody's show, whatever's going on. But regardless if you see a show on that list, you want to know what it's about. What does it draw? You know, to me, I can't explain this enough, but I look for a show that's professionally run. You know, and a lot of people, their concern is, can I win that show? And that's pretty much their only concern. You know, can I go in the show and am I going to win? Well, you want to make sure that when you go in, for one, that show is going to happen. You know, if the show is, you know, something you could probably definitely win, it's probably because it's not that competitive, it's pretty small, and not too many people know about it. That's, I wouldn't say, a good reason to choose a show to do. I would say pick one that's reputable, one that's been going on for a long time, it's established, you've watched it before. You went there as a spectator, you sat in the audience, you watched it, and you're like, I want to be part of this. It's a big difference when you know that you want to be part of an event, opposed to just saying, well, I wanted to go in a show because I think I could win. You know, pick a show that you want to be a part of, that you feel that is so special that you don't want to miss out on being one of the competitors on the stage. And that's something I've always stressed to people is go in to have a good time because you can't control whether or not you're going to win, or you don't know who else is going to show up. So that would be my recommendation on this video, is choose a show that you just really want to be part of that show. You like the way that show is run, you've watched it before as a spectator, and you want to go be part of that event. So that would be my recommendation for choosing your first show. All right, so thank you, and we'll see you on the next video clip. Thank you.